I was obese my whole adult life until just a few years ago. And now I've lost half of me, over 140 pounds gone. And it's because of whole food plant-based eating. It saved my life. I'm convinced it literally saved my life. So here's some of my favorite before and after picture these days. I started out at 129 kilograms, which is 284 pounds. And now I'm down to 64.4 kilograms, which is 142 pounds. So I lost a little bit more than half of me. I want to explain a little bit how I ended up here. And it started with a bit of a health journey. Here's me in April 2012, 10 years ago. And that's a picture just before this happened. In April of 2012, I was feeling a bit strange somehow. I thought maybe I had a cold. I didn't really have any pains or anything like that, but it was like ongoing for a couple of weeks. And I just thought was feeling really, really strange. And then one night, finally, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I said to myself, Doug, this is not a cold. And I went downstairs to my computer and I logged into the Mayo Clinic site and they have a symptoms checker. And they said it looked like I was having a heart attack. And they said to call an ambulance based on my symptoms, even though I was not experiencing chest pain. And that's important for people to realize. There are many symptoms that can mean that you're having a heart attack, and it does not have to mean that you're having a sharp pain in your chest. And I understand that's especially true for women. And so they said to call an ambulance, and so I called an ambulance. So I called 119, which is like calling 911 in the United States, and in the middle of the night. And they said they were going to send an ambulance for me. And I warned them. I told them I weigh 129 kilograms. That's, double the size of a normal person. So they said they would send extra people to help carry me. And I said, it's okay. I could walk to the ambulance because I was ambulatory, but they said I should definitely be cautious and they would, pick me up and take me to the hospital. And so they came, they had extra people, they put me on a stretcher, they carried me to the ambulance. It was a bit embarrassing because my neighbors by that time, they could peer out their window. This is a nosy, Shitamachi Japanese neighborhood, Tokyo neighborhood. So all the neighbors were sort of looking out the window and watching me being carried off, and sort of embarrassing. But anyway, they took me to the hospital. And when I was at the hospital, the doctors did one of those tests where they go through your veins and they examine your inside and check arteries for blockage. And they said that, in fact, there was an arterial blockage and that I needed to have a stent put in. And they ran blood tests. It was pretty scary. They ran blood tests, and my A1C blood sugar, which indicates whether you have diabetes or not, was incredibly dangerously high, 11.8. And my cholesterol was through the roof. My blood pressure was high. And the next day after they did this, I was recovering in the hospital, and the doctor visited me, and his only advice was to start an 1,800 calorie a day diet. And, I decided that I really wanted to do more than just count calories because, everybody has done that so many times. And so while I was there in the hospital, I was looking for a better way than just limiting calories, because I've been there, I've done that. There, you can, it works at first. You lose some weight, then you lose your willpower, you rebound. You probably rebound even higher than you were before. You try again, it goes on in an endless cycle. So while I was in the hospital, I had my laptop and had my smartphone. And so I did searches for, best programs to help me with heart related problems for health purposes, not just lose weight, but for overall health. And I came across Dean Ornish, who I had not heard of before. And he had a book called The Spectrum Heart Disease Reversal Program. And they didn't use the term whole food plant-based at that time. Maybe they did, and I just didn't know it. But I don't think he mentioned that in his book. But it was a very interesting book, and it was plant-based mostly. And that was the beginning, not the end, but that was the beginning of my whole food plant-based journey. It got me started on healthy eating for the first time in my life, I became convinced that that was probably the way to go. Now, I did have a few minor plateaus along the way, and so I did adjustments. And it did turn out, in my case, to be too many calories that I was eating. For example, Dr. Greger, in his book, says he doesn't think a handful of nuts every day can hurt weight loss. But yeah, big laugh. But they add up in calories. There are a lot of calories. And they seem to be hurting my weight loss, and I gave them up and I started losing again. I actually have some posts on my blog. I have a link to my blog at the end of my slide presentation. And I wrote a whole bunch of controversial blog posts about why nuts are hurting my diet. And I was finally just said nuts to nuts. And I gave up.
Doug, I got to interrupt because I love that you're saying that, because all the wonderful doctors that are telling us nuts don't affect weight loss have never been obese like us.
Well, that's the thing. I think that there's a difference between people who are not obese and trying to eat healthy and people who are having weight problems. And we have to be more careful. And nuts are really, as you would say, high in calorie density. And I would say, yes, high in calorie density and high in calories. And they just affect weight, and they're full of fat also. And I also tried Dr. McDougall's, starch solution only, which was just 70% starches, and it was causing stalls also. And it was because I was eating too much, I thought. So my final breakthrough was actually you. I started talking about some of these problems, bouncing free questions off of Chef AJ, who was nice enough to answer. And I bought her book, The Ultimate Solution to Weight Loss, and it introduced me to some concepts that I had never really thought about before, which is interesting considering that I log calories, which is calorie density. And I was, for example, trying to stick with low-calorie diet, but at the same time, I was eating all these things to the right of the red line. I was eating breads, I was eating pastas. I was trying to include all these things that were just made it harder to stick to weight loss. And when I started considering keeping to the left of the red line, then I changed my starches. Instead of eating pastas, for example, which I loved, I would have pasta with tomato sauce that I would make myself. I would stick to things more like potatoes and rice. And I gave up crackers and pastas and other things like that that are really high in calorie density. And you'd be surprised. Like, for example, in Japan, they have rice crackers called senbei. And all they are basically, they don't have oil in them necessarily. You can find ones without oil and without salt and other things like that. But all they are is grilled rice and air. So they're extremely light. And so the calorie density is extremely high, and they don't fill you. And so you could get a bag of, like, it says, okay, this is only 140 calories, but you eat it and you don't feel like you've eaten anything. And so you end up eating more and more and more and more. It doesn't fill you up. And so I started sticking to the left of the red line, while I myself continued to also track calories because I just find it helpful. And I added in more low calorie density snacks like brown mushrooms. I love mushrooms. And cauliflower rice is sometimes tasty to fill you up in the middle of the day. And some low calorie density fruits like watermelon and blueberries and things like that.